Imagine you're playing a game of Monopoly. You've followed every rule, you've saved your cash, you've bought your properties, and you're waiting for your turn. But then you look across the table and realize the player next to you isn't playing by the board at all. They've found a gap in the wood of the table, a tiny, overlooked crack where they can slide their money out of sight, let it grow while you aren't looking, and bring it back whenever they need to buy the board out from under you. You ask the banker if this is allowed. The banker looks at the crack, looks at the player, and then looks at you. He says it's not in the rule book, so it isn't illegal. It just is. This isn't a metaphor for a shadow economy or a dark web underworld. This is the story of the Eurodollar market. It is the single largest pool of untracked, unregulated capital on Earth. It is a trillion-dollar loophole that, by all logic of national borders and central banking, shouldn't exist. Yet it is the only reason the modern world functions. Right now, you probably think the US Federal Reserve controls the US dollar. You think they turn a dial, interest rates move, and the world follows. That's the story we're told in textbooks. But there is a second, ghost version of the dollar living outside of America's borders. It lives in the ledgers of banks in London, Tokyo, and the Cayman Islands. It's called the Eurodollar. It has nothing to do with the euro currency, and it has everything to do with how the wealthy and the powerful moved the goalposts of global finance while the rest of us were sleeping. To understand how we got here, we have to look at a moment of supreme irony. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union had a problem. They had lots of US dollars from selling oil, but they were terrified that if they kept that money in New York banks, the US government would freeze their accounts. So they did something clever. They moved their dollars to a bank in Paris. Suddenly, these were US dollars held in a European bank. The US Federal Reserve had no jurisdiction in Paris. The French regulators didn't care because it wasn't their currency. The money had entered a legal vacuum. It was a dollar without a home. That tiny crack in the system was all it took. Fast forward a few decades, and that crack has become a canyon. Today, the Eurodollar market is estimated to be worth upwards of $13 trillion. To put that in perspective, that is more than half of the entire US GDP floating in a digital ether where no single government can truly see it or tax it. Here is how the mechanism actually works, stripped of the jargon. When a bank in London lends $1 billion to a company in Brazil, they aren't using physical cash, they are creating a digital entry. Because this transaction happens outside the United States, the London bank doesn't have to follow US reserve requirements. They don't have to keep a certain percentage of that money in a vault. They can leverage that dollar 5, 10, 20 times over. It is a factory for ghost money. It creates massive amounts of credit that fuels global trade, but it does so without a safety net. If a bank in Ohio fails, the Fed steps in. If the Eurodollar market glitches, there is no official lender of last resort. We are relying on a pinky promise between the world's largest financial institutions. The uncomfortable math is where this gets high stakes for you. You might think, I'm not a billionaire in London, why does this matter? It matters because the Eurodollar market is what actually sets your mortgage rate, your car loan, and the price of the gas in your tank. The global price of almost everything is tied to the funding liquidity of this offshore ghost market. When the Eurodollar market gets tight, meaning banks start trusting each other less, the supply of dollars vanishes. It doesn't matter what the Fed says the interest rate is. If the offshore market decides dollars are scarce, the world economy chokes. This is what actually happened in 2008. It wasn't just about houses in Florida. It was a heart attack in the Eurodollar system. The ghost money disappeared, and the real world felt the phantom pain. The hype tells us that we live in an era of globalism 2.0, where digital currencies and fintech will democratize money. The reality is that we're still operating on a plumbing system built in the 1960s to hide Soviet cash. We have built a skyscraper of global debt on the foundation of unregulated ledger entries. The absurdity of the situation is that the US government actually needs this loophole to stay open. If they tried to shut down the Eurodollar market and bring all those dollars home, the global economy would instantly collapse. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency only because this loophole exists. It allows the rest of the world to trade without having to ask Washington for permission every time. We are held hostage by a system that never was supposed to be permanent. So, where does this leave us? We are currently in a period of massive volatility. Central banks are trying to fight inflation by shrinking the money supply, but they are only looking at the money they can see. It's like trying to drain a pool while a massive hidden pipe is still pumping water in from the bottom. We've reached a point where the loophole has become the system, the shadow now larger than the object casting it. We have created a trillion-dollar ghost that we can't exorcise because it's the only thing keeping the lights on. As we move further into this decade, ask yourself, what happens when the players at the table realize the crack in the wood is getting wider? What happens when the banker realizes he's no longer the one in charge of the game? The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed, to exist in the spaces where the rules don't reach. The question isn't whether the loophole will be closed. The question is, what happens to the rest of us when the ghost finally decides to leave the room?